All right. Okay, welcome back, everybody, to the online edition of Winterkamp. The next speaker is Maurice Booij, and he practices H.E.M.A in the north of the country. He has quite a lot of experience under his belt, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about how to stay active during this corona pandemic. And it's personally something that I really struggle with, how to remain in shape. I'm becoming a fat slob, and it's really, really terrible. So I really hope, Maurice, that you can teach me and everybody watching and listening how to remain in shape, and also to do that in a fun way. So please take it away.
Well, hello, I am Maurice. I'm the chairman of a club called Mars in the north of the Netherlands, and this was an awesome intro. You just knocked it out of the park, so I actually won't need to do my own intro. We can just start with what we're going to do. Because wouldn't it be nice to actually always be motivated and never let feeling tired or feeling unmotivated get in the way of getting your results? A lot of people struggle with that. This presenter was not the only one. This pandemic has turned a lot of people into couch potatoes, and that's maybe not the best thing to be if you want to progress in actually anything in life. If you want to progress in martial arts, there's something you can do, and that will be the framework of this talk. So we just had a nice talk about preparing for tournaments. That's a really high-level thing. We're now going deep into the subject of motivation and how to prepare for anything and how to keep your progression moving forward. I am by no means a motivational speaker, so I won't be promising overnight results. I'm not going to sell you instant happiness, health, or success. But we are going to dive into the subjects of what motivation actually entails, how you can stay active even in the toughest of times, much like the pandemic now brings down upon us. So let's talk about motivation. A problem is that people don't have the motivation to do X, whatever they want to do. At least that's what they say. If we look at training for martial arts or physical training, a lot of people say they know it's supposed to be good for them, but there's no depth to that. People find it hard, they find it difficult, they actually think it's no fun, and it doesn't bring the same happy feeling that sitting on the couch watching Netflix does. But is that true? 80%, it's a big number, and 80% of all New Year's resolutions fail. Statistically, even half of the people watching this will have had New Year's resolutions, and 80% of you are either currently failing or will fail later this month. People have a tendency to pick New Year's resolutions. I have a tendency to call that New York resolutions for some reason, but New Year's resolutions for the wrong reasons. They don't have the intrinsic motivation to follow through. The 1st of January is a pretty random date. So that doesn't actually signal that you're intrinsically motivated to do something. And this makes it feel more like peer pressure, actually, in a lot of cases. People lack the motivation, they often lack the knowledge to see things through, and what they often lack is a plan. So let's dive into what motivation actually entails. What is motivation? People actually abuse the word, in my opinion. Whenever they don't feel like doing something, they claim to be unmotivated. And they might actually think that, but is that actually the right word to use? So what does motivation actually mean? Well, look at some synonyms. There's reason that every cop show on TV talks about your mum. And I'm actually being pretty serious. Anytime a detective talks about a suspect, whether he is a suspect of doing a crime, they talk about the means, the opportunity, and the motive. Easily put, did they have the right tools? Did they have the right timing? And have they had the right reasons to do what has been done? So a motivation will be a reason. Actually, with any exam that you take, there might be a question that says, motivate your answer. Show your reasoning. So motivation is a reason to do something. Reasoning in and of itself is a rational thing. It's a cognitive process. Your brain is actively doing the reasoning. That's important to note, that motivation is rational, because on the other hand, feeling is an emotional thing. Like, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Feeling is emotional. And why is that important? Well, unmotivated people often use the word unmotivated when they don't feel like doing something. So even though motivation is rational, feeling like you don't want to do it is emotional. So that means that there is actually a battle between your motivation and your feelings, between reasoning and emotion. But in the end, that's a battle between you and you. We'll get back on this battle between mind and gut thing. People often chase the simplest solution. And often mistakenly, they seek out more motivation whenever they don't feel motivated, like they don't feel what they're like doing what they should. They're going to seek out more motivation. They're going to bury themselves in books, self-help books. There's hundreds of thousands of them. Some are good. Some just sell you more motivation. They listen to motivational speakers. You might have heard that type, calling you a lion that should rise above the sheep, because deep down you know that you're better than average and everybody should be able to aim for the top. Because obviously 100% of the people can attain the top 10%. The internet is full of this one, motivational quotes. I'll actually spare you the ones that are on the screen because they're very, very cringeworthy. In fact, Yoda in the bottom corner is probably the best one on this page. And the problem with all these is that they don't actually tackle the problem, or they tackle it partly at most. They only tackle part of the rational side, giving you more reason. They do not tackle at all the emotional side, apart from perhaps the emotional motivational speeches, which can be designed to change your emotional state, especially when it's layered with music. But the problem with that is that they're usually used before or during training sessions. And people at that point are already committed to doing the exercise. So it's not getting you motivated to go do anything. It's actually changing your state into a better one when you already are motivated to do something. Music might actually be a better thing in that case, because music tends to trigger a region of the brain called the amygdala, which triggers positive reinforcing memories that are linked to the music. So this is why a lot of sports individuals use music to get not only hyped up. It's not just the music hyping you up through the rhythm, it's actually reinforcing positive memories from training and previous victories that you might have had in the past. Oh no, this chasing new motivation gains you very little. The mind doesn't improve that much. There's not a better reason constructed. There are zero improvements on the emotional side even, and that emotional side still makes us not want to do the thing that we should be doing. So the gut, in this point, is still winning the fight. Then, how do we improve? How do we improve the rational and emotional situations? Well, we start by asking the right questions, because the right questions often lead to better answers, and better answers might get us better results. Now, in most cases, a good starting place is the question why. It's one of the best questions in a lot of situations. Why would you need motivation? Why should I be doing this or that? And on the emotional side, why does the gut have a different plan than my mind? Well, the need for motivation is simple, since we have already established that motivation is a reasonable thing. So if there's no reason, there will be no action. So let's get into the minutiae here. Why should I be doing X? This can be applied to a number of subjects, pretty much all subjects. that's a very broad topic, but I was invited to speak on staying active during a pandemic. So let's stick to this framework of martial arts and then pose the question, why train? Why would you train if there are no classes? Why would you train if there are no tournaments to prepare for? There is not that short-term goal of reaching anything. Well, the point is, improvement does not only happen in class. I would even argue the case that most improvement should not happen in class. In fact, repetitions are the only way to improve any skill. And if we look at the calendar, let's look at the calendar of a normal H.E.M.A club. This is 2021. This is 2021 without all the times that we can train. I've taken out the summer vacations, I've taken out the Christmas vacation and some of the Dutch bank holidays. There are only 52 weeks in a year. Taking out 6 weeks already diminishes that. If you take out the bank holidays on Monday, if you train on Mondays, at most, if you train once per week, you can train 44 times in a year. You can say, well, I've picked up this new hobby called sword fighting, and I've actually been doing it for a year now. Yeah, that sounds impressive, but if you put it like, I've picked up this hobby called sword fighting, I've held a sword 44 times now, then you start to see a problem arise. Even if you train twice a week and you only skip the Christmas weeks, then you would have held a sword 100 times. Well, if we compare that to any other skill that you might want to develop, a guitarist who has held a guitar 100 times will not be rocking in a free world. He will probably have hit a wonder wall. So what to train? I'm not going to go into very specific details here. There will be an awesome presentation by Oscar Temors at 5:15 Central European Time. That goes more into the subject. So instead, I'll look at the types of training that you could and should be doing. And this is really the basic thing that always underlies any type of training. So again, making the bridge with music, this would be your étude, as the French call it, études in English, or the skills, just practicing the things that will help you get better in everything that you want to get better at. If we divide these basic skills, we can see different segments. Of course, there are throw drills, and people who know me know that I'm a fan of those. This builds fluidity with your weapon. The precision drills, cutting at specific targets, thrusting at specific targets, meaning training to get better at hitting what you want to hit. Shadow fencing, sure. You could call this also katas or anaerobic exercise. But how long can you fence without getting tired? Especially if you're doing tournaments, it's pretty handy to be able to hold your sword for longer than a minute. And last but certainly not least, cutting. I've put that on the bottom of the line because that's the most expensive. You will need a sharp sword, you will need stuff to cut. But still, that's an invaluable tool to learn proper mechanics within your cut. And the more you cut, the more you understand what you're actually doing when we're training with blunt swords. So getting better with your body in flow drills, getting better at hitting stuff that you want to hit, getting better at using your weapon for a prolonged period of time, and actually knowing what your weapon does are a couple of skills that could really benefit you outside of class. We can divide it even further and go a bit deeper into it, because not only sword skills are skills that a martial artist should have. I've called this body skills to keep it simple. But if you really look at the minutiae, if you really look at the base layer of your physical abilities, these might be some of the subjects that pop up. Footwork, of course. How well can you move in a fight? The lunge recovery thing. How well can you get in and get out? I disconnected that from footwork because footwork is a movement thing, this actually also has an explosive element to it. How quickly can you get in? How quickly can you get out? And that's not just the proper rapier lunge or saber lunge. Also in longsword, we've got the Zuvechten and Abzug that heavily rely on you being able to properly move your legs. Agility. How well can you move? How well can you move your body into any position that you need it to be? And for that matter, how well can you move your body? Flexibility. Can you stretch? How well is your yoga? How good is your balance? Why would you need balance? Well, falling over in a fight is a bit nasty, so you don't want to be doing that. Also, strength training. Strength training for martial arts? Yeah, strength training for martial arts. Injury prevention, to say the least. The stronger the muscle, the more difficult it is to tear it. And the stronger the muscle, the better taking care of the muscle, the easier it is to repair if it does get damaged. Posture. Good posture is an important element of any fight, especially at close range. So why not improve your posture with deadlifts, squats, making sure your body stays in the position that it needs to be. Explosiveness. Essential element of any competitive fighter or any real fighter. I often hear the question, well, I'm already old. Should I be doing strength training? I'll never attain the explosiveness of a 20-year-old. Yeah, no, maybe you will not attain that explosiveness, but still, injury prevention, the posture. The more strength, the healthier you will be. We even see this in a lot of researchers that actually took biops from 70-year-old people who were very active in their lifestyle with long walks and going to the gym, and compared it to biops of 40-year-olds who were more sedentary, who had desk jobs. And turns out the body tissue of a 70-year-old that regularly works out is significantly healthier and looks younger than that of a 40-year-old with a desk job that doesn't work out. So this is not only for martial artists, this is actually something that anybody of any age in any line of work should adhere to. So let's talk about that devotion to motion. To get a better why, ask why is it important? We all know it's supposed to be good for you. We know it's supposed to make you healthier. But did you know it makes you happier? And how does it make you healthier? I will not now turn into a fitness coach which rambles on about why, and why. I'll just get into 3 details that might be lesser known or even unknown in this community. Let's look at the leg-brain connection. Did you know that there are several closed feedback loops between your upper legs and your brain? This is a use it or lose it deal, actually. And I'll turn to my screen for a second to get this quote right by Dr. Raffaella Adami of the University of Milan. The research shows that using the legs, particularly in weight-bearing exercise, sends signals to the brains that are vital for the production of healthy neural cells, essential for the brain and nervous system. Cutting back on exercise makes it difficult for the body to produce new nerve cells, and those are some of the very building blocks that allow us to handle stress and adapt to the challenges in our lives. What also was shown through this research is that people who do not use their legs have a lower metabolism and lower oxygen levels. Simply put, your legs keep your brain younger and healthier. It helps produce nerve cells and stem cells. And using your legs actually tells your brain how tired you should be. So using your legs less gives a signal of a sedentary lifestyle, which lowers your metabolism, which means you get fatter quicker, and it lowers your oxygen levels. So you won't be able to run or fence as quickly as you want to. BDNF. The brain-derived neurotrophic factor. I'll actually speed through this in the interest of time and want to keep some time open for questions and the answers after this. So BDNF, simply put, the brain-derived neurotrophic factor supports the survival of neurons. It improves or it is essential to long-term memory. It combats stress and stress-related diseases. The happiness cocktail is probably the one that most people will have heard about. Anytime you exercise for basically more than 20 minutes in a serious manner, you'll release a lot of endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, and non-adrenaline, which make you feel happy. They actually battle cortisol, so you'll be less stressful as well. And these roles are in our modern day lives often taken over by bad foods. Fatty, salty, and sugary foods have the same tendency to trigger certain of these hormones. And in modern life, actually, social media has taken over that role as well. Anytime you get a like on a post on Instagram or Facebook, you get a spike of happiness as well. Closing out this section about why train with the number one. It is good to be doing multiple things in your life. If you consistently train, whether it's that just for your health or for martial progression as well, if you do that next to your job, next to your hobbies, and even if you then have a shitty day in any of those regions, at least you have done something that makes you feel good on the bad day. At least you've got something to grab hold to. So now that we've got good reasons and a couple of ideas what to do, how do we choose reason over feeling? How do we ensure actually doing stuff, and how do we ensure the mind wins this battle over the gut? And actually, we can look at very old answers for this. Stoicism is what pops up right now. The title, Train Like a Stoic, of course hints at this, and Stoicism is a very good answer in trying to find that balance between mind and gut. Stoicism nowadays gets a bad rap. It's often used for people who are indifferent. They're being called a Stoic if they're emotionless or repressing their emotions, but that's actually not the case. Stoicism itself is very old. It started in the 3rd century before Christ, and the H.E.M.A wannabe on the right is Zeno of Citium, the founder of it. More modern, meaning Roman, what's the word? Stoicists, sorry, are probably best known Epictetus, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius. And the whole thing about Stoicism is that they're always pressing about that your life is your responsibility. You might be in service of society, but because it's your life, it's your responsibility. Actually, with a quote from Epictetus, philosophy does not promise to secure anything external for man, otherwise it would be admitting something that lies beyond its proper subject matter. For as the material of the carpenter is wood, and that of the statuary is bronze, so the subject matter of the art of the living is each person's own life. So your life is the thing that you should work on, nothing else. Your life is the only thing you control, you could say. Actually, Marcus Aurelius put that more succinctly. He said, make a list, make 2 columns. In one column, write down everything you can't control. And in the other column, write everything you can control. And you'll notice that there are only 2 things in that last column: your thoughts and your actions. That means Stoicism encourages you to disconnect your feeling from the action, actually by asking several questions. How do you feel? Acknowledge that. It is not about throwing your feelings out of the window. You should know how you feel. You should ask yourself why you feel like that. But the next question is, how should you act? Because oftentimes, feeling a certain way is not the way to move forward in your actions. If somebody says something to me that I don't like and I become angry, I might feel angry, but is reacting angry actually the best idea in that situation? It might very well not be. So, for instance, within this training setting, I should go train. Maybe I should go take out the trash. But I'm feeling really comfortable in this warm room on the couch with Netflix and bad food. Yeah, you're feeling that, but what is the right action? Now, how do you obtain that magical Jedi power of choosing your thoughts over your feelings? Put it into practice. Really, it just takes practice. It will not happen overnight. There's no magical transformation, but put it into practice. And if you practice long sword, a little later, we'll actually see how Lichtenauer uses this same kind of philosophy. This takes time, it takes effort, and it takes discipline. And this might be the most important slide. Discipline is the word that should be used in a lot of the cases. Oftentimes people use the word unmotivated. I don't feel like doing it. I don't have the motivation to do it. You don't then lack the motivation to do it. We already know that that's a reason. You're feeling like not doing it, so you don't lack the motivation, you lack discipline. Call out your own bullshit. Luckily, one hand washes the other. Stoic thought and discipline reinforce each other. The more you practice discipline, the better you will get at it. It's like pretty much a muscle. In the last few minutes, I will power through the practical side of things. Because how do you actively do this at home when you don't have time, when you don't have money for gear or anything? Eliminate friction. Friction is everything that stands in the way of you doing what you need to do. Time constraints, location limitations, money. So how do you set yourself up for success? Well, literally set up. If you do go to class when there's not a pandemic on and clubs can train, maybe you've got work until shortly before class. That means you'll already have packed your bag to take with you to class, and you don't have to do that before class anymore. That's a very easy example of that. You can change your environment at home, move your furniture so it becomes easier to work out. For instance, drinking water. I'm not close to a tap, but I do always keep water on my desk so I can drink when I need to. If you don't have money to buy new stuff, if you're new to H.E.M.A, you don't have a sword yet, you don't need a sword. Use the hammer. It doesn't feel exactly like a sword, but it can help with your throw drills, etc. A ruler can even help in a pinch. And if you really don't have anything at the hand and you still want to do flow drills, you hook your pinky into your thumb and you can still move your body as if you're using a sword. I can't stress enough that you should plan. The more you plan, the more adherence you will have. Simply because when it's on your calendar, it becomes a real thing. When it's on your calendar, it's true. And if you then skip what's on your calendar, it suddenly feels like you're missing an appointment, which is then a failure. It feels like a failure, and that's not a bad thing. Failure is not something that we should avoid, but you should be failing the right things. You could be failing an exercise. That's okay. You at least tried it. But failing to show up, that's the bad thing. So plan. How often should you plan? If we're talking training and exercise, at least 2 to 3 times a week. Getting back to that calendar thing, if you only train 1 time a week, you're not progressing. The best way to progress in any skill is to train a little, a lot. So you'll get a lot more out of doing something for 10 to 15 minutes, 3-4 times per week, than doing an hour of something just once a week. Have a backup plan. Go do something else if what you wanted to do is not an option. Don't have the space to work with swords? Work out with your body. Don't have weights? And work on your agility, flexibility, balance, etc. This is actually the Stoic thought that is very clear in Lichtenauer's system, even if it's not intended that way. But actually the whole idea of the 5 Hauen is very Stoic. He is standing, your opponent is standing in the guard. Oh, he or she is in vom Tag. Then I will attack with a Zwerghau. Oh crap, they moved to Pflug. Now what? Yeah, the situation changed, But the situation of you being in a fight with someone didn't change. The circumstance changed. You'll now have to adapt to the circumstance. No what ifs or buts. Accountability is a tool that can help you. Having other people nag to you about, have you done this yet? Can really be a helpful motivator. Deadlines are a thing that most people are familiar with that do the same very thing. Having consequences really helps. If you're really unmotivated, tell somebody your plans and tell them, for instance, which charity you hate. And then tell them that you're going to give $1,000 to that charity if you fail your goals. Consequences help. Now, to get that friction even further out of the way, there's this thing that is called a habit. Accountability flows into this. As a child, you were told to brush your teeth. And if you didn't brush your teeth, your parents would get angry and you get punished. Now you brush your teeth every day. That's a habit. You do it every day, like tying your shoelaces and having dinner. And that is not something that you have to actively choose anymore. You've done it often enough that it became ingrained in your system. It mitigates choice. The only catch is that you have to do it often enough. Often it's said that it takes 21 days to form a new habit. And actually, when it comes to physical training, it might be a little longer than that. The jury's out on that. So that might be actually 30 days. That might actually be 2 months. That actually also depends on the starting point of the individual. Bad habits are also hard to kick, but knowing this, it becomes easier to replace bad habits with good habits. How do you start? You start somewhere. And again, start with a low bar. This is one of the best tips I can get. Start with a low bar. Start with 2 to 3 times a week for a short amount of time. Make it obtainable. It's better to have small wins than to have big losses. Summarizing, how do you stay active? You have to know that motivation is your reason to act. So find the best ones, learn about why you should be doing something, and pick what resonates. You want to stay healthy for your kids? You want to stay healthy for yourself? You want to win a tournament? Know that feeling unmotivated is a feeling, and that provides an emotional barrier. And know that emotions and thought are 2 different things, and call this problem by its proper name. If you're not feeling like doing something, that's not a motivation problem. That's a discipline problem. The Stoic discipline is actually the barrier breaker. It breaks down that divide between the emotions pushing back on the motivation to do actually what you need to do. Eliminate friction for the best result. Set up, learn as much as you can about what you want to do, plan, and improvise to get the most out of your intentions. Stick with it, see through it, and I will leave you then with a quote from Aristotle, who said, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit." Thanks for watching.
Thank you, Maurice, for this very interesting and inspiring talk. We got some questions from our viewers for you.
Awesome.
Yeah, and let's just get right into it. We have about 8 minutes, maybe a little bit less. A good question is, well, I said, well, you might cover this already, but how to keep consistent even with little noticeable progress. So I think that's what this person means, that even if you don't really experience a lot of progress, how do you keep motivated?
Yeah, it's a very good question, actually. And there's several ways to go about it, and there's not one right way. One of the ways that I personally work around this is, again, to be working on different things at the same time. So maybe I'm botching up a certain combination of strikes and I can't get it into my body, and that gets me frustrated. But maybe I did improve on my flexibility and can now reach my toes, and that's a win for that week. And that's a win for this week, and then maybe that combination of strikes becomes the win of the week after that.
Right.
And again, with low bars. Make your goals attainable. And with the attainability comes not only the attainability of the goal, but also the attainability of the attainability. So again, plan the short times. It's easier to work on a problem for 5 minutes, 3 to 4 times per week, than it is to break your head on that same problem for an hour and not having made that progress. Because now you've worked on that for an hour and not made progress, instead of worked on that for 5 minutes and they've made incremental progress.
So you should change it up if you feel like you're not making any progress, basically.
Change it up, look for the progress in other sites, and break your goals up into smaller goals.
All right. Another interesting question is, how do you suggest to manage motivation when you have another role? And that means, for example, when you're also an instructor in H.E.M.A, which might, go against your own training / progression a little bit. So you have this responsibility perhaps as an instructor, but you also want to get better as a fighter. Those interests might clash. How do you go about that?
They mostly clash during class, because during class you're teaching. I have this problem as well. So when I'm teaching, I'm often not training. I'm lucky enough to have a club that has a designated training session with only the top level fighters training for basically a sparring session. That would be an expensive but attainable solution. But progress in this case then also lies again with the homework. What are you doing outside of the class? Are you getting together with other instructors? If you're the only instructor in your club, why not contact people from other clubs in the country? Most countries have multiple clubs, especially in the Netherlands. We're not a big country. It's easy enough to get in touch with other people. It's easier enough to drive there and then have an exchange of information and sword blows.
Right.
Progression lies in what you do when people are not watching. So if you don't have the time to do it during class because you're teaching, that automatically means that you should be doing it outside of class. Because we're coming back to the Stoic thought, you have to realize that the situation is a given. You can't change what is not your thought and what is not your action. So how are you going to deal with the situation? That's the question that's posed then.
Right. I want to squeeze in just one more question, and it's basically several people ask this, so I'm gonna compress it into one question, and it's basically about what if if you're outside of class and you're practicing, for example, at home, you might learn things in the wrong way. How do you avoid that?
Touch base. If you're training alone without a club, get in touch with people from clubs. The H.E.M.A community is very welcoming, and we will always be able to give feedback or to critique. Especially critiquing is something that sword fighters are very good at. But if you're part of a club, we all have this thing. It's a phone. Most of these phones have a camera. And it doesn't matter how crappy the camera is, you're not shooting a Hollywood movie, but you can actually film what you're doing. And if you're training a certain technique or if you're training a certain principle, show it to others. Record the 10-15 seconds of your best shot at that thing, and then ask feedback. What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? Which details should I be focusing on to actually make the biggest improvement?
Right. Well, it's very funny because someone actually asked this. Would you advise to record yourself? So you answer that question as well.
Yeah, 100%. If you have mirrors, like in a dance class, that's awesome. Why do they have mirrors in a dance class? So you can see how you're fucking up and then how you can unfuck it. If you don't have mirrors at home, the size of a dance hall, you have that camera. Look at what you're doing. It's the same with music. I always come back to that because that's my first love. You have to listen to what you're doing. And if you're not listening to what you're doing, other people will, and they might have a very different opinion on how you're performing than you are. You can't just sit through the session and hope for the best. Progress is only possible if you know what the problem is.
That sounds like a very good quote to end this session on. Thank you very much. Well, you already put some of your channels on screen, so because I wanted to make people to make sure that people know that you're also on YouTube, you're also on Instagram, and of course you fight at Mars in where? It's in the north of the Netherlands. Where is it? In Groningen or somewhere else?
We train in Groningen and in Zwolle.
Yeah, cool. So if people who are located there, well, they will probably already know you. So thank you very much. Let's get on with the show. In a couple of minutes, the next speaker. Thank you.